This is Ayesha Siddiqa with Neighbors Talking for Naya Daur TV. Today, we're going to talk to Mr. Mahfuz Anam, who's a renowned Bangladeshi journalist, editor and publisher of Daily Star, and one of which is one of the largest circulating English daily in Bangladesh. And he is, most importantly, a prominent pro-democracy activist. Mr. Mahfuz Anam, welcome to Neighbors Talking. Uh, Bangladesh is a country which catches a lot of attention, definitely in South Asia and most certainly in Pakistan. I mean, we hold the country in awe, we look at its economy. But very recently, there have been very mixed news on Bangladesh's economy. So I want to know what is happening. Where does Bangladesh stand today in South Asia, politically and economically?
Well, honestly speaking, Bangladesh's narrative has been one of, dependency of being dependent on foreign assistance, foreign aid, lots of things. But in the last 20 years, the narrative has dramatically changed, and we are now looked upon as a potential 10 potential countries for the future, big market expansion, many things like that. However, this growth story is based on, 4 or 5 pillars of the economy.
Right.
One is the garments, where we are the second largest producer. The other is dependence on remittance, which subcontinent countries are all dependent: India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. And these two are the main pillars of our economy. It's supported by a very robust growth in agriculture, and also some manufacturing within. Now, because of the Ukraine war and the sudden rise in price of dollars, price of energy, obviously a country like Bangladesh that depends so much on export and then depends so much on remittance, so much on basically the value of dollar in terms of our RMG earning. So there has been a bit of a shakeup. But and I think our government has been quite proactive in taking some measures, and we have been early, if you like, and early warnings were given by the local media, by our own experts. So yes, it's an economy that's grew in the last 20 years, but it is being tested under the changed global circumstances. We, have a robust reserve of $38 billion, which has also been in question because of Sri Lanka. So all in all, we are, if you like, being very careful, looking at the global situation and internal. We are being cautious, but I think we are at the moment on steady ground.
It's interesting that you mentioned Sri Lanka. Now, what Sri Lanka did, of course, it looked internationally, but within the region, it definitely looked at India. Which brings me to my next question: that is it what Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, did when she was recently visited India? What what were the reasons for the visit? Was economy a driver?
No, you see, I don't know, what did you mean when you said Sri Lanka was looking at India? I think Sri Lanka was equally, in fact, more looking at China for investment, and many of the foreign exchange issues crept out of the Rajapaksa's family's the reckless investment. No, but India-Bangladesh relationship is, in a way, is very vital for Bangladesh. I mean, if you look at the map itself, okay, we are surrounded by India on 3 sides. The other side is Bay of Bengal with a little border on with Myanmar. So for Bangladesh-India relations, I would compare it with Mexico-US relation, with Canada-US relation, where the neighborhood good linkages are very, very important. And I mean, I know from
But that's a
Pakistan
but
point
you
of
know
view.
but that's a very tricky, you know, relationship then, because if you remember, if you get somebody like President Trump, you know, the way he treats Mexico becomes then very different from.
I will not contest that, but so far we have had responsible leadership on both sides. But you know, as a Pakistani scholar, you may not fully perceive the importance of the relationship between India and Bangladesh. Now, it is both very complex and yet full of potential. Now, obviously, there are problems between our relationship. We have lots of issues to raise, lots of expectations that remain unmet. But the whole spectrum of the relationship is viewed within the lens of cooperation rather than condemnation, looked upon as of mutual benefit rather than one country harming another. But it doesn't really mean that we don't have any issues with India. We will have, and our discussion will reveal some of it in the coming minutes. But it is fundamentally a relationship of win-win. At least that's what we aim at.
You know, in 2006, when I visited Bangladesh to study, incidentally, civil military relations in Bangladesh, then I remember that there was a lot of bitterness amongst common people because of what happens at the Bangladesh-India border. You know, people, Bangladeshis crossing over, uh, Indian BSF reacting. So there was that bitterness. And in fact, I was surprised that people were much more bitter in a way about India than Pakistan, which had, in a way, then been forgotten. Uh, so my question is that, you know, with that, very recently there was an incident at the border. India has changed its citizenship laws, which mostly affect Bangladesh and Bangladesh's politics. So how is that being negotiated?
I mean, I would like to question a bit of some of your premises. In 2006, you visited, you found more anti-Indianism than anti-Pakistan. I'm a little surprised to hear that, but obviously, you know, we all have our perceptions from meeting people who come across and things like that. But I repeat myself that there are many issues with India which remains to be resolved. Border killing is definitely one of them. And I, in my own newspaper, have written very, very strong editorials demanding the stoppage of all that. However, it hasn't come about. So this is one of the issues that remain, if you like, still unresolved. But the point to be made here is that there has been a very dramatic reduction
Okay.
in border killing. There still it happens. You know, there are trigger happy people on the border, and there are a lot of you know, tension sometimes come about. And there's also, if you like, a history of insurgents on the Indian side of the border, for which you know, the Indian security forces are a bit too edgy at times. But yes, this is an issue that remains to be solved. We from Bangladesh are not happy at all at the instances of border killing. So that is a work in progress.
But you know, on the Indian side, there is this understanding that, you know, there are migrants that come from Bangladesh, you know, which is a political issue on the other side.
Yes, it is, and in fact, that is. I mean, you mentioned the Citizenship Act,
Yeah.
which has affected the Muslim population on the other side of the border. It's an issue that our government has expressed concern about. We can't say that we are happy about it. We observe it very carefully. We have raised it with the Indian side, and the Indian side keeps on telling us that it is not going to affect Bangladesh in any negative way. But it's again something that we watch very carefully, and we are not too happy about the Indian Act. But we obviously have to admit that it is an Indian issue, and it is the Indian government will have to resolve it.
But I'm sure you would, you must have looked at it. I mean, India is changing politically, socially. Um, there is a right-wing government there. Bangladesh, it in itself, I mean, there are changes. There are social changes in Bangladesh. There is more religiosity, more conservatism. So how does the two match? I mean, does it put pressure on the relationship or what?
Well, in a way, if you like, the rise of extremism anywhere is a matter of concern. So the India that was a partner with us in our liberation, that helped us to gain our independence, that hosted the Mukti Bahinis, they helped us in many ways, is really not the India of today in terms of politics. I have many close friends in the Indian journalism field. Uh, I think people-to-people relationship remains very robust. But yes, India's rise of Hindu nationalism is again a matter of within India. But as a neighbor, we see it with some concern. We hope that it doesn't affect the balance of population within India, within Bangladesh. So therefore, it is something we are watching. We would be happy not to see the rise of religious extremism on either side of the border.
Certainly, the Modi government is very practical about its geopolitics. Um, so one of the things that, and it accommodates, and Bangladesh certainly. Now, what do you think was gained during a recent visit of the Bangladeshi Prime Minister to India? I mean,
Well,
there were some water sharing agreements, but there were disagreements too.
true. I mean, obviously every political leader, when they go to a foreign visit, they would like to bring back home some trophy and something that they can show, good, look at this breakthrough here or there. This trip has not been a breakthrough trip in many ways, but it has been
Okay,
a consolidating trip. I mean, I said before that Bangladesh India relationship has many dimensions. There are security dimension, connectivity dimension, trade and investment dimension. There is
right,
collaborations in many ways, water sharing, many things. So it's a very comprehensive relationship with lots of complexities, lots of differences of opinion on either side, but it is a relationship framed within the concept of cooperation. I mean, that is
right.
perhaps where our relationship can be distinguished from many bilateral relationships.
Okay. So my question then is that, what impact would it have? Does it have on, uh, you know, what impact does it have on uh, Bangladesh's domestic politics? I mean, that is the important question. I mean, while the government
No,
strengthens.
listen, Aisha, as a scholar, as a student of security issues, you know that neighbors have the most complex relationship, right?
Certainly, certainly,
And if one neighbor is small and the other neighbor is huge, then that relationship becomes even more complex. It is in the
certainly,
nature of
certainly,
it is in the nature of things that a small country is suspicious of its big neighbor. A small country, always is sensitive to the slightest changes in the big neighbor's policies and things like that. And we are no different. So
certainly,
Bangladesh
certainly.
looks at India in many ways. And in some ways, Indian policy affects our domestic policy and vice versa. But a very important point to note that India, being a part of domestic politics of Bangladesh, has greatly lessened. If I compare, you see, I have been running this newspaper for 32 years. So in the first 10, 12, or 15 years, the India factor in Bangladesh's domestic politics compared to India factor in Bangladesh domestic politics today, it has greatly lessened in my view. And one of the reasons for it is the steadiness of the bilateral relationship between India and Bangladesh. There were a lot of suspicion, which gradually diminished. So some areas suspicion remains, but it is, for example, take the issue of connectivity. Now,
Right,
before,
right,
connectivity used to be called transit.
right,
Now,
right.
transit was a very sensitive issue for Bangladesh. What did it mean? So the whole narrative was transformed from what did I say? Um,
Yeah, yeah, transit. You were talking about transit.
transit, from
Yeah,
transit to connectivity. Now, this is more comprehensive. This has many more dimensions. And for example, some of the main things that are happening, Indian goods is flowing through Bangladesh, through the rivers, through roads. New railway links are being built, and
okay.
so this is, but here again I would like to point out that the issue of connectivity between Bangladesh and India is a little more complex than normal connectivity between neighbors. It's not only that Bangladesh and India are being connected, but one part of India is being connected with another part of India
New
through
India.
Bangladesh. Through Bangladesh.
Right,
So
right,
obviously,
right.
this poses some very sensitive questions. What will be transported through this transit? Say something from West Bengal going to Assam through Bangladesh territory. So what will be the nature of its goods? What will be the cost? What charges we will impose on them? What precautions we need to take? So these are being worked out over the years, and the point, a very important point I would like to make is that through the negotiations, through the resolving of difference of opinion, the confidence between the two neighbors are much higher today than before in resolving our differences.
That's an important point you make, which also, is interesting because that does affect the choices which countries make, even politically. I mean, I am assuming that under the previous government of BNP, relations were not at the top between Bangladesh and India. Is it correct to assume that?
Yes, and one very key point is that during the time of the BNP regime, India's insurgents, particularly in the Northeast, used to be supported directly or indirectly through the territory of Bangladesh. This was one of the very
Right.
serious, it was one of the most serious objections that India had against Bangladesh, because no country really takes their security issues lightly. Whatever may else be the reality, security, I mean, everybody, it's a full stop in terms of relationship. So Sheikh Hasina's government very correctly, and I support her in this policy, she did away with all insurgency related issues. Now, Bangladesh does not support directly, indirectly, or remotely any insurgent issues within India. Now, this has greatly enhanced our relationship. It has given confidence to India that now Bangladesh can be dealt with because Bangladesh is not threatening India's security. So I would say, if you want to identify one significant difference between the BNP government and that of Sheikh Hasina, security has been a very primary mover of the relationship going forward.
Okay, right. Now that brings me to another relationship which Bangladesh has had, and it's like, off and on sometimes, which is its relationship with Pakistan. I mean, there
Right.
are times when Pakistan looks at Bangladesh like a ripe fruit to be picked geopolitically, um, and that it could be at least partners again in a pushback, not fight, but a pushback to India or Indian hegemony. Uh, Very recently, and what one has noticed is that under the current government, uh, the relations are not very warm. Um, Imran Khan, the previous prime minister, did try to reach out, to Bangladesh. Where do you see that relationship?
If I may, first of all, let me in a way introduce myself. I'm a freedom fighter. I
Sure.
took up arms against the Pakistan army. I joined the Bangladesh military during the war. So in a way, that's a very strong memory with me. However,
Okay.
I'm also a student of history. If France and Germany could have fought several severe, bloody wars and then become friends, why cannot Bangladesh and Pakistan become friends again? And as I
Certainly.
said, I'm a student of history. I want to move forward. However, here I would like to make a very fundamental observation. One is that I believe, and I may be wrong, I am a journalist, I'm 73-year-old, I have seen a lot of things, I believe that Pakistan still doesn't, hasn't accepted the narrative of our liberation. Pakistan accepts us today as a sovereign country, as an independent country. But why was Bangladesh formed? The fact that we are a Bengali nation, and that within the Pakistan narrative, Bengalis were unhappy and there was genocide. Now, you may not accept the details of the history, but the overall view is that Bangladesh fought a liberation war and it gained independence. Your narrative is that Bangladesh's birth was an Indian conspiracy. They conspired to divide the two nations and they have succeeded. Now let us go back and rebuild the relationship. But the fact that we are a Bengali people with a very distinct identity, I believe Pakistan has really not yet accepted. And that's where the real problem lies. Now, making gestures of friendship, let's become brothers again, friends again. But who am I? Who
Hmm.
is this nation you are trying to be friendly with? You believe that, of course, we were a part of Pakistan. And please don't forget that Bengali Muslims played a pivotal role in the birth of Pakistan in the 40s.
They certainly
Nowhere,
did. They certainly did.
nowhere, nowhere Muslim League won an election as they did in undivided Bengal. So this is the history of our people, and yet we were the ones who broke Pakistan. Why? So that narrative remains a big gap between our two people coming together again.
So, I mean, recently Bangladesh offered help after floods, which Pakistan didn't accept. Uh, but is, you know, realpolitik? I mean, does realpolitik have the potential of kind of, not bringing the two countries together, but, very in a very realpolitik term, bring the two states to talk to each other?
Very absolutely, and I think there are tremendous trade potential between Bangladesh and Pakistan. Definitely a friendly relationship is desirable, but I think that fundamental question has to be resolved. We were not born out of an Indian conspiracy to break Pakistan. This narrative, which is very strongly etched in the minds of the Pakistanis, must be gotten rid of. Otherwise, we don't believe that we get the self-respect. Now, suppose I meet a Pakistani friend, and I have many. The editor of Dawn,
Zafar, Zafar,
Zafar
Zafar
Abbas, is
Abbas.
a very close friend of mine, and we are very close. But I mean, given all that, I have to be respected as a Bengali nationalist, not as a product of Indian conspiracy.
Indeed, you're right on that. You're right on that. You know, that should happen. We should be able to. I think one of the biggest lessons of history is that we should be able to walk across and walk through those lessons and learn to become friends. But let me ask you this one last question, where you know global politics is shaping up in a very interesting way. There is Ukraine, there is greater tension. Where does Bangladesh see itself in case there is greater tension between China and India and the United States?
It is a matter of great concern for us. I'm glad you mentioned it. Given a country with tremendous development challenges. Given the fact that we are actually only in the last 20, 25 years that we are making some significant breakthrough, a country like ours, we need a peaceful world. We need relationship with everybody. And again,
Certainly.
I'm a very strong critique of the Sheikh Hasina government. But again, I praise her for one very, very important foreign policy success. You see, normally in Bangladesh, if BNP came to power, the policy tilted towards China. If Awami League came to power, our policy tilted towards India. Sheikh Hasina in the last 15 years broke through
Okay.
that. And now we have a very robust relationship with India, but also a very, very significant relationship with China. The Chinese investment in Bangladesh is enormous. So this duality of our politics, being friendly with India and being friendly with China, even when China and India had tension, was a very successful policy. Now, with the Ukraine war, with the world now again becoming polarized, we in Bangladesh are really fearful about it. We are observing it very carefully. We hope not to be dragged into this global, divisive politics. But of course, how much we will succeed and how much we will not be able to do
But
is a
if you're dragged in, what will be the options? What course?
that's a highly speculative question, as a student of security studies. But we will try our best not to be dragged into it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mahfuz Anam. This is a question which bothers entire South Asia, including India,
Yeah,
which is very much more central to this Indo-Pacific strategy.
right.
Thank you so much for joining me today in Neighbors Talking, and hope to carry on the discussion even in future. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was delightful. And as I said, I am a big admirer of your writing. And so it was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.